as a beginner, there are certain programming languages that are not really the best choice to start with due to their complexity and their limited practicability for beginners. Most beginners go ahead to choose wrong programming languages to start with, and it costs them their motivation. Most of them don't really continue because they find it very hard to understand the syntax and the complexity of the language. So in this video, guys, I'm going to share with you 5 programming languages which I think that are not really the best choice to start with as a beginner. So before I mention these languages, I want you to know that these are just recommendations. It doesn't really mean that the languages are bad or that you shouldn't give it a try. If you find yourself loving any of these languages, I think that you should really give it a try. And make sure to stick around this video because the last programming language will be a shocker. So the first on my list is the assembly language. The assembly language is a low-level programming language, which means that it interacts directly with the system, hardware, and memory. And as a beginner, I don't think that it is time to know all the stuffs about system and memory and all those technical jargons. I think that you should start from a high-level programming language that doesn't really interact directly with the system, hardware, and memory. Languages like Python and the rest. Going for a low-level programming language might be good, but as a beginner, that's not really the best choice. Another downside to the assembly language is that it can be complex. The assembly language can be very complex and the syntax can be difficult to understand. The second on my list is the Haskell programming language. Haskell programming language is a mathematical language, which means that most of its functions is built on mathematics, but that doesn't really mean that you should be a mathematician to write with it. In fact, most programmers that write with Haskell are not even mathematicians. They are not even very familiar with maths. Another downside to the Haskell programming language is that it is not widely used and it might not land you the first job as a programmer because the Haskell programming language is being outdated. Most people don't write with it again and is being outdated as new programming languages are coming up. Another downside to the Haskell programming language is that it doesn't really give room for practicals. The Haskell programming language doesn't really give room for practicals for beginners, so that makes it not suitable for you as a beginner. So the third on my list is the Objective-C. The Objective-C was widely used in the past to write macOS and iOS development, but right now it is being replaced and overtaken by the Swift programming language. So as a beginner, I don't really think that you should go and learn a language that is being outdated, that is being taken over by another language. You are better off learning the Swift programming language than learning Objective-C. So the fourth programming language on my list here is the Prolong programming language. The Prolong programming language is a declarative language, which means that it focuses more on the end result than on the method of getting the result. And as a newbie, I don't really think that you should focus on the end result. I think that as a beginner, your main concern should be on the method and not the end result. But that is not for the Prolong programming language because it focuses on the end result than the method of getting those results. And again, the Prolong programming language is a language that is used mostly for artificial intelligence and logic-based programming. And as a newbie, I don't think that you should go into that now. I think that it is for more advanced programmers, so you shouldn't really make that mistake of starting to learn with the Prolong programming language if you are not really very brilliant and a very fast learner, because it's going to waste you a lot of time. And another downside to the Prolong programming language, it is that the syntax are very difficult to understand. As I said earlier, it is for advanced programmers and not beginners. So before I call the last programming language, which I told you will be a shocker, I want you to do me a favor. Go down below and hit the subscribe button and also also like the video, as it will help the algorithm to suggest this video to most beginners so that they won't do the mistake that most beginners make. So the last programming language here is the C++ programming language. I know you are shocked, but let me tell you this. I know that many people have told you that the C++ is a very nice programming language, which it is. The C++ is a very nice programming language and it is very, very popular and widely used. But the C++ is also a low-level programming language, which, as I stated earlier, means that it interacts directly with the computer hardware and memory, which I think that as a beginner is not really the time to know all those. But the C++ is kind of an exemption here, because if you learn the C++ as your first language, trust me, getting into the other languages will be very super easy for you. C++ requires more focus and discipline to learn it as your first language, but if you can learn it as your first language, it will be very, very good and better, or even the best choice you make. But if you can't, I advise you to learn other programming languages like Python, which are also object-oriented programming languages, but they are high-level programming language. And after, you can now learn C++ as your second programming language, and it will be super easy for you. Honestly, if you learn C++ after learning Python, I'm telling you that C++ will be super easy for you. So C++ is better off a second language than a first language. So as I said earlier, the languages here doesn't really mean that they are bad or that you shouldn't learn them. If you have the focus and the discipline to learn them, you can go forward and learn them, and they are also really nice languages. But they are not really ideal for beginners, because most beginners struggle with focusing and discipline. So comment down below and tell me the language which you are learning first, or the language which you are planning to start to learn. And if you need to know the languages which are best for beginners, I also made some videos that are going to tell you specifically languages that are best for beginners, especially those that doesn't have any background in tech or coming from the computer science, especially those that are coming from a very different field. These languages are really simple and they will help you enjoy your first stages as a programmer. So comment down below and tell me the language which you are planning on starting with. But if you have already started, tell me the language which you are currently learning. And if you have any other question, you can still ask it in the comment section, and I promise to answer every one of them. And remember, you don't need any other motivational quote or book. All you need is focus and discipline. Peace.